Guys, how we doing? B-Sticks here. We're going to break down this sample AMBIENT, and I am giving it away for totally free, so the link is below. So get this sample, do what you want with it, and have fun with it, and let's get into it. So we started with a progression which is basically in D minor, and it is a minor 5-1 going from an A, which is here, which is an A alto dominant chord. So I am going to do a full video on the breakdown of that. I'm moving into a diminished chord, a C sharp diminished, which is basically leading us to the D minor, which is a D minor 9, which is right here. So nothing too complicated. And just to keep it interesting, I repeated the chords, but added this 3-note melody here on the top. So if we hear that, simple as that. And then I just added here 1 note. And again, just keeps the whole kind of melody interesting. And this is our main actor in this sample. And I've put some processing on. If I take it off, you'll hear the difference. Just mute that. Totally different. So we've got RC20 start with, as I always use. We've got lossy, 43%, just the standard as it comes. Phaser, which is giving us some movement. Now, movement's really important in sounds, I find, especially when samples are simple in terms of not too many instruments, because it gives us movement. So this phaser is just moving the sound from left to right across the sonic stage, and I think it adds a lot, and I use it a lot in this sample here. We're really filtering this sound with a lot of EQ because I wanted it to really have that lo-fi feeling, and the texture that it was giving me when I filtered it in this way, I really seemed to like it, and it fit nicely with the other sounds in the sample. Next sound that I put in, which is very different texture to the first sound, and what I used was the QAPT bank. I think it's called something Blue Dream Volume 3, and the preset was called Osmosis. And what we're doing here is basically we're using envelope 2, which is here, to modulate the cutoff filter, which gives you that opening. You can see there, and I really like that sound. It contrasted well with the other sound, and it's something that I've heard on many Brent tunes as well, and I thought it would work well in this sample. So together with the other key sound, we've got this. Sounds really nice. Similar processing, so I don't need to go through that again. The only thing that's different is the sample delay, which is utilizing something which is called the HAAS effect. I use this a lot. Now, it can cause problems when summed down to mono, but I just thought it sounded good, so I wasn't really too bothered about that. Just delaying one side of the sample by a few, I think these are called ticks. I'm not sure exactly, someone correct me if you know. Oh, samples even. 255 samples, so basically gives an effect, an illusion of the sound being wider than it actually is, which helps with filling up the sonic stage. As I said before, that's really important. So the next sound is the bass, and the bass is pretty simple. The reason I've called this preset the Mustard bass is you can hear Mustard use this sound on tons of his records back in the sort of early 2010. Yeah, loads of different artists, Chris Brown and all that. So you've got here some sawtooth, a little bit of square wave or rectangle wave, and then some sub oscillators doing their thing here. Pretty simple. This is just this. Don't worry about this. This is just how low the sound is, how deep it is. We've got a few things, bit of resonance going on, and a tiny little bit of decay, sustain and release, just in this shape here. Bit of chorus and some overdrive. But then I wanted to also beef up the sound with some other plugins, so I was sidechaining this to the kick. So every time the kick played, ducks down about 3 or 4 dB, just to make some space. Now I know there's arguments, should you sidechain, should you not sidechain? I just thought it sounded good in this occasion, so I left it in. Don't really overthink it. I put some more distortion on this sound because it was a bit too clean for my liking, really trying to dirty it up and give it that old sampled kind of feel, and then rolling off some tops and just tiny little, I don't boost much, but just a little boost here, to give it some more bass and some bottom end, and this is the result. So with the other sounds here, really, like, pattern wise, I'm just following the root notes, and I put a few fill notes in here, just really accentuating the rhythm that I wanted to create. And here, just a little few skippy notes on the same note. Simple bass line, but I kind of left space, but I also put some fills in, just kind of really mimicked what I've been hearing in Brent's tunes. There's quite a few notes there, but they really just follow the pentatonic scale and keep things simple and leave space for the other elements of the beat of the sample. So this here, I basically took all these elements here and bounced them down, pitched them up by 12 semitones, and it gave me this kind of interesting texture. I used this for the beginning of the sample as well, beginning of the beat, and I just found that this gave me a nice texture that added to the other synths that I already had. I've got a couple more sounds, I'll take you through those. So I went to Arcade because I noticed that a lot of these Brent Faiyaz beats had, like especially WY, had this interesting vocal thing going on where it was also panning from left to right. So we did that with the Shaper box. We'll come to that in a minute. But yeah, just found the sound in Arcade that I liked, a couple of chops, and I think it's from the Distant Voices, somewhere in between. Just sounds like this on its own. I added some echo onto one of those on the low voice, and again I was side chaining the echo to itself, which basically means that it's a trick that a lot of mixers use, and it's really handy. It's basically every time the vocal plays, the delay gets ducked, which means that you can hear the vocal, and when the vocal stops, the delay then grows out, and it gives an interesting kind of pumping effect to the delay and creates a bit of space. It's not so washy, and it's something you should definitely check out for your sounds. And I doubled the vocal. I just pitched it up by 12 semitones. So you've got two vocals playing, and they're all kind of intertwining, and it sounds a bit messy, but it kind of works. So with everything in so far, you've got nice, all sounds pretty good. There's one or two more synth sounds, so I just brought in this little ear candy sound every couple of bars, which is right here. You'll hear, I'll just take everything else out now. So you've got this lead sound, which goes very analog sort of sound, very dry. Just wanted to kind of give you that ear candy, and I've also automated it to pan from left to right. It comes in, bang, comes in. You'll hear that on headphones, and it's just a stapler pluck, nothing too exciting. Just a sound. I just bounced it out and pitched it down by 12 semitones to give like a bit of depth to that sound as well. Fill up a bit more of the sonic space. Right, then we've got a lead sound, which is the last sound in the sample, which I'll play for you. Again, from Sky Keys, loving this plugin at the moment. Just kind of, I love getting a new plugin, just want to like maximize and check all the sounds out. Leads, late bubble, turn the vibrato up a little bit, and some wow and flutter just to make it sound sort of really weird. And I like weird lead sounds. Similar plugins to before. Phaser again, which is again doing what you know. We already discussed some lossy, Shaper box, and as you can see, using the pan feature on that. EQ doing absolutely nothing, so I don't know why it's there, but anyway, is what it is. And that is all the sounds in the sample. So you heard it at the beginning. Oh no, there is tell a lie. So there's a couple more sounds from the sample at the beginning of the tune. I just bounced down all the instruments and put them at the beginning. Nothing too crazy. Use this Moog growler bass, which you'll hear here, which is a preset in Omnisphere, Take a Day Trip, and loads of producers love this sound. The growler Moog bass, or Moog bass, which is a great sound, that kind of Drakey bass, you know, that is used over and over again in different producers and different samples and beats. Added some percussion as well. The interesting thing about this percussion is that there's just a straight hit playing on the 2 and the 4s, but then I've got this other percussion that I programmed in that's moving from side to side. As I said, when things are simple, use movement, use texture, use things like this to really make things, keep things interesting and not just sound boring. So production technique, sound design is so important, and you know, I go on about it a lot, but it's really, really key in making things sound good and sound interesting. And then all we did then, took the sample and I just programmed some drums. Now drum wise, I was really thinking like D-Pat, Sonder, you know, they use a lot of sort of 2000s drums. I know that they've said they love like Neptunes and Timberland, and you can really hear it. And what categorizes this kind of drum programming is a lot of syncopation. Now you hear here, if I just So got some interesting sounds. Now, a lot of the sounds of those old records would have been taken from keyboards like the Korg Triton and things like that. And I did have one a few years ago, but I got rid of it. I've got the plug-in version now, but I just looked for a lo-fi drum kit because a lot of these sounds are kind of, they sound like real samples rather than like 808. Sort of, obviously they do use 808 drums as well, but I love these kind of organic sounding drums. They just give a nice sort of texture again. And I keep saying about texture. And all I did was just program some syncopated parts to the drums. Now, I always find it, again, I've talked about this before, but I just sing my parts like that. And then I just sort of put what is in my head on the screen. Just program it. I did a ride in here at the beginning just to mark every sort of 8 bars or 16 bars, sorry. And I like to use audio. I know Jordan Reiki and some other guys like to program their drums in audio. I just find that that's always the way I've done it. I just enjoy that. And I find it's really kind of, I don't know if it sounds better in my head. It sounds more slappy, but I could be wrong. So a few things here I want to look at. On a few of the percussions, I added, again, the sample delay, the HAAS effect to widen the sounds. And on the snare, an interesting thing I did was just to give it more texture. I just dropped the sound by 2 semitones, which added some of that kind of really a little bit of distortion, a little bit of more texture to the snares, which I really like. And you can try that as well with your snares, maybe not with the kicks, but with any kind of like transient percussive sounds like snares, claps. Like, it's fun to do that. Hats, I always seem to program in MIDI. I don't know why. I just kind of like the hands-on, and I play them in usually on my keyboard. And the hats, pretty simple. Again, leaving space to breathe, so little gaps you're going to see. And then again, like, to keep drums interesting, I'd cut little pieces out, mute things. Like, there's usually more mutes, but you know, I just mute stuff out, and that across a whole sort of 2.5 minute song, it just gives more variation to the sound. So we got everything now pretty much in. The only other thing was some vinyl crackle, which I always like to add a little textural sound that just literally goes underneath the whole beat, whether it be like crickets in a garden or beach or an airport or some vinyl crackle. It just adds kind of ambience very low down in the track, which I love. Mastering chain, if you see my other videos, very similar to what I always use. A little bit of boosting on the top end. Soothe, which is actually taming quite a bit of the hats. You'll see that is the hats that it's taking a lot of energy out of, but I still enjoyed how they sounded, so I left it. L2, which is doing some limiting, and my favorite plugin, which is my comparison AB plugin, which again, Dro said that this was Dro who mixed like Water for Tyler and a lot of Davido stuff. I believe Davido WizKid, sorry. He loves his reference plugin. He says, "What's the most important plugin?" His reference plugin, and I have to agree. So I ripped a few. I ripped a few Brent tunes here, so I could kind of, you know. And I AB, and I like to see if my levels are similar to the levels that are in sort of commercial releases, and if they are, then I'm happy. Anyway, go download this, do what you want with it, and I will see you again soon.